Hey lovelies, thanks for stopping by for today's BYOP. Today's palette is featuring my most used shades. This was a really interesting one. I have to be honest, it was also like a little, I don't want to say depressing, but a little humbling perhaps. I don't know. We're gonna get into that in just a second, but if we haven't met before, my name is Kelly and I'm a professional hair and makeup artist, and here on my channel I strive to keep beauty real. Real honest, real relatable, and real fun. So if that sounds like something you'd enjoy, don't forget to click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. All right, for those of you that are new to this Build Your Own Palette series, my friend Kara from Beauty and the Frizz and I started this over 2 years ago now. That is just crazy to say. And we really used this series as a way to get more creative with our singles, use the makeup we have more, and honestly just give our single shadows the attention that they deserve. So this is a great one because we're going to show you the ones that get the most attention. Now, I just said in the intro that this was, I just don't know the word for it, but I will just say this was an exercise in realizing just how many eyeshadows I actually have, because as I was going through here and I was looking at ones that I think of as shades that I use a lot, and then I saw the dip in the pan or the lack thereof in the dip of the pan, and I'm like, people are not going to believe me. They're not going to believe that this is a shadow that I use all the time. But let's face it, I have a lot of eyeshadow, right? And I personally think I do sort of like spread the love pretty well. But today I'm featuring the ones that, you know, are just the romances that I just can't give up. So we're gonna get into these. I'm gonna give you swatches, really share my thoughts on these eyeshadows, and then we're at least gonna do obviously one look, but I think I'm gonna do two. It is 9 p.m. as I'm filming this right now, so it's just gonna depend on how long it takes me to share these shades with you. So that being said, we might as well get snappy and get to the point. I'm gonna show you the palette, and then of course we'll do swatches. So again, if you're new to this, I always do live swatches, and then I will give you a zoomed in look at the swatches in case you wanna see them up closer. So here is my little palette, and you know, it is so funny because I mean, I don't think anyone would be surprised to see this color story. This is a very Kelly color story, and I think it's also very like seasonally appropriate. So as much as I don't need to have these out on my vanity to use them more, because I do use them a lot, I might actually keep this one out for the season just to be able to have it on hand because I like it as a color story. All right, so where should we start? Let's just start from this top row. Why is it that I always end up having long sleeves on when I go to do these swatches? I also have my watch on, and so that I can use my dominant hand because I need all the swatching help I can get, I'm just gonna take that off. My summer watch tan line is starting to fade. Welcome to Wisconsin. Okay, so I'm gonna give you some swatches here. I'm actually gonna zoom you in just a little bit so that you can see a little bit closer. I am still missing my magnetic wand. Where did that thing go? Oh, found it. Yes. If you watched my video from Tuesday of this week, I was sharing the new Devinah releases, and somehow in the preparation of all of that, the eye swatches, the comparison swatches, I lost my magnetic wand here, so I found it. Maybe that means this is going to be a really good luck video. So this first shade is a shade from Pretties for Your Face, and this is the shade Fra-gee-lay. So I've actually talked about this one quite a bit. One of the reasons that this is in my most used shades is because I've actually had it in my companion palette for the last year. Oh my gosh, how long ago did I do this palette? For a while. And what my companion palette is, I'm gonna go right into this little line. We might as well just go right into the middle of that tan line. So my companion palette I built a while ago as just that, a companion palette for other palettes. You know, we all have those palettes that we're like, this is a lovely palette, but I always feel like I need an inner corner shade that isn't in this palette, or I always feel like I need a deepening shade that isn't in this palette. So I created my own little custom companion palette to be able to really pull out any palette in my collection and then always feel like I had the perfect sidekick for that palette. So this shade, what I think makes this one so nice for me is the fact that it is so basic. And obviously, like, it is almost my skin tone, just a little shinier. We're already going crooked, that's great. And that's exactly what I need. This is just such a nice, soft wash of color. I can use it for a beautiful inner corner that like brightens but isn't overtaking a look. I can use it as a lid shade if I just need something, again, really brightening and quick and easy in the morning. It's just that shade that is sort of boring and basic, but sometimes you just need it in a palette. But also, if every single palette we ever had this sort of like soft beigey champagne-y moment, we'd be sort of tired of that. So I think it's always great to have a shade that, especially if it's one that's like a shade or two lighter than your personal skin tone, it's just nice to have in a companion palette. By the way, I'll have that video of my companion palette, the original companion, linked down below for you, because I'm thinking about doing a new one, sort of like revising it just for the winter seasons and just to kind of freshen it up. So we'll see about that. So this next shade I have actually talked about quite a bit, and I know that it's been in many a BYOP. This is the shade Adorn. This is from Devinah Cosmetics. And this one, I mean, obviously you can see it's got a little bit busted there, but this is more used than it looks like because I actually have two of these. Because when I cracked this one, I ordered another one and I was like, you know what? I feel like once these shadows break, they're just a little unstable to travel with. But that being said, it is something that I feel comfortable enough having out on my vanity. So I actually put this one in my companion palette because it is that shade that I think is just so perfect. It is a beautiful brown that is really deep if you decide to build it up, but you can also sheer it out into this lovely tone. The tone of this, the undertone is just so nice. It's not too cool, it's not too warm, it's just a beautiful, rich neutral. And, you know, if you really pack this on, it can be that like almost black. So I just really like this one. So I've used this one time and time again when I'm like, you know what, I need a deepening shade and I don't want to think about it too much. I just want something that's going to be like a good, reliable shade. Adorn is where it's at. Now this shade is really more about nostalgia for me. This is a Makeup Geek shade. And for anyone that was around when Makeup Geek had its heyday, you might even know this shade before I even say it, and it is the shade Bitten. And this one actually has a pretty significant dip in it, considering how pigmented the shade really is. I have not used this one in a long time. I'm definitely going to have to use it tonight to see really, you know, if it still performs the way that it did. So Bitten is this beautiful, like mulberry rich matte. And again, this is a shade that I just found you could pack on to really build it, or you could sheer it out. And I will say, I actually feel like both the Devinah and the Makeup Geek mattes sometimes don't swatch as well as they perform on the eye. So you'll have to see it in action. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter as far as Bitten goes because you can't really get it anymore. But this one is just so close to my heart. And I really like this one as someone who has hazel to green eyes. When I wear shades like this on my eye, it sort of brings out the green more. So I really like that. Okay, so right away, I knew this one was going to be going into this palette. This is Celesta from Devinah, and this shade is so stunning. I mean, you can see that. That's got a pretty darn good dip in it. I love the shade. This whole collection, the Galaxy Dust Shifters, this whole collection to me is just so special. It's still my favorite collection from Devinah. If you haven't tried anything from the brand and you're sort of like, I just don't know where to start with the Galaxy Dust Shifters because I think they have just enough shift and just enough sparkle that, you know, you can really kind of find something for everybody in this set. So Celesta has this beautiful, almost like greeny gold, but it has this beautiful ambery, almost that like burgundy brown undertone to it. So I just find that depending on what you lay underneath it, depending on what you pair with it, this can just really take on a few different tones. And it's that beautiful grungy green that I absolutely adore. So time and time again, that is one that I'm just like, oh, I just know I want to look good. I want to feel confident. I want to have eyeshadow that's like really beautiful. And the people be like, wow, that looks lovely. But that isn't like too much. Celeste is the way that I go. Okay. I tried not to put too many shades in here that were in my All I Ever Need palette, which to me, that was one that's sort of like, okay, if I could only pick 10 from my roster, those would be the ones that I'd need. I tried not to go too much into using those shades, but this one, you have to know that this one was going to be in here. This is Devinah Tucana, and again, you can see. At some point, I'm probably going to need another one of these, which is just insane to think. This is just, again, it's one of those beautiful, sort of like spicy, neutral, beautiful, but somewhat subdued multi-chromes. And I just love this. I actually kind of think that this formula really is similar to the Galaxy Dust Shifters formula. I'm using my pinky here, which is, you know, I'm not giving Tucana her moment, but she's had enough moments on here. So this one really is just so beautiful. It's got shift, it's got just enough sparkle. Again, I think that it's that like je ne sais quoi double take multi-chrome that it's like, ooh, oh wow, that eyeshadow, that's like beautiful. And I think it's one that people who aren't indie brand multi-chrome super shifty eyeshadow wearers would also really appreciate the beauty of. So I really love this one. By the way, I also have to say, as I'm like wiping my fingers off here, I have to say that I know that the Tucana Shift is something that many brands have done. I mean, there is one in the Patinated Major Dimension 2 palette. There is one in the newer Haus Labs palette that I got, and several other brands. I think Pat McGrath has one that's sort of similar. This is just my baby. This is the one that I prefer. She's my standby. She's the one that I know always works, looks good, easy to go on the eye, and I will forever have her. All right, another nostalgia shadow here. I can tell, you can see from this pan, hopefully. I mean, it's been through the battle, and a big part of that is because Makeup Geek was my first single shadow brand that I ever purchased. And I remember watching a few YouTubers way back in the day, just like ooh and ah over this brand. I started watching Marlena and I just fell in love. And I really think that this brand put single shadows on the map. And I know that like MAC and other brands have done single shadows, but really it's Makeup Geek that made the mainstream group of people realize the potential that single shadows had. And this is the shade Grandstand. And where I was going with that is this is so well used because at one time, the only single shadows I had were probably, oh, I put a little space in there. That's all right. I probably had like 20 Makeup Geek singles. And even at that point, 20 single eyeshadows seemed like, wow, I've got a lot of these. Little did I know. So you can see, I mean, for those of you that, you know me, you've been here on my channel for a while, or you know my personal aesthetic, it's a beautiful, not quite rose gold. It's more like a blushy nude. And I mean, I'm not gonna lie, some of these Makeup Geek shadows I've had for quite a while, but that foiled formula is still just performing so, so beautifully. So that is Grandstand, and that was definitely one of my favorite Makeup Geek shades, and well used. Again, just one of those like, I just want to feel put together. I want to feel enhanced. I don't necessarily want to worry about matching something, but I just really want to have something that's flattering, and that was a great shade. Okay, another favorite matte of mine, you know that I had to have a dusty sort of neutralized green, and Sydney Grace General is a beautiful one. This one doesn't look all that well used, but the thing about Sydney Grace mattes is they are so pigmented, and I usually find that they apply deeper than they look in the pan, so it doesn't take a lot of this one to get high impact on the eye. I mean, look at that. Like, and you all know that I really try to give very realistic swatches. So that was just like a little swirl in the pan and, you know, one little glide. So, so pretty. So, you know, give me an earthy green, give me any type of green, and I'm gonna be a happy girl. Okay, I also had to pull out this one to sort of relive the high life of glam shop days. Does everybody remember that like 2-ish years ago, everyone was going gaga over the glam shop shadows? This was one that I used so much, and you can see here, this is Patinated. And I will be honest, this is a pretty close dupe for Mystic Moon Pie from Devinah. So if you have that one would definitely work if you're trying to, you know, recreate a look I do or anything like that. They're very, very close. I just know that this was one that I used a lot of when I first got it. And I think that this is, again, almost that like sexy neutral, but on the cool kind of taupey, purpley side. And there's just something so beautiful about this. And one of the things that I really love about this eyeshadow is the base to it is so sheer that you can really use it in many ways. I mean, you can build it up on the eye as its own shade. Maybe you'll be able to see here. So you can build it up on its own. I mean, that is just like wet looking, but you can also use it as a topper shade. So depending on what you put underneath, like let's say you decide to use a matte cream shadow, something that really has a lot of longevity, you can go over the top with this and have a completely different look. I really love that. I think that it's super fun. Okay, it's so funny because several of these shades that are in here have battle scars because they've traveled with me, different things. So this one is no different. So this is the shade Toes in the Sand. And you can see this one is pretty busted. And this actually happened when I was either filming a video or I think it was actually when I was going through my Sydney Grace shadows to build a personal palette for someone I know. It was like before the Sydney Grace sale, and they were like, I really want to try some Sydney Grace. Can you pick out some shades for me? So I was sort of going through mine and doing some swatches and sending them to her. And, you know, it was just like there were shadows everywhere, and I think I dropped something on it. So Toes in the Sand was it must have been a mystery bag shadow because it's not available. And I think that the brand saw on my Instagram that I was sort of like lamenting the fact that I had busted my shadow, and they were so sweet. They were like, what shadow is that? And I was like, it's Toes in the Sand. I think it was from like a couple mystery bags ago. And they were like, I think we have one. We have one and we'll send it to you with your next order, which was just incredibly sweet. I did not expect that at all. And you know, Sydney Grace just has great customer service. And so I was very happy to get another one. So that one, because I'm a makeup hoarder, that one is still sitting in a pile with my Sydney Grace Christmas in July restock order. Yeah. So anyway, this shade, I think you can see that it's really different than Adorn, especially when you start to blend them out quite a bit more. This really has much more of a cool taupey shade to it. And so it's just nice because, you know, sometimes as much as I don't wear a lot of cool toned looks, this one is just that neutral cool that really just works for me. All right, this last shade probably needs no introduction. Maybe right there you can see, and you can probably guess. This is Nokomis from Devinah. Obviously, there are a lot of Devinah shadows in here. You're probably not surprised to see that. It's just the brand that I tend to pull out when I'm like, okay, I know where things are, I know exactly what I have, and I know what's gonna look good. So it's just sort of my like comfort brand, if you will. I do try, in a lot of palettes, I do try when we're doing these BYOPs to pull out shades from other brands so that I am using other ones more. But for this one, obviously it's my most used. I had to do this one. This, for me, it's just such a lovely, stunning, I mean, look at that. It just looks like it was flipping plugged in. Like, it looks like it is battery powered, solar powered, like it uses electricity. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, it's just so pretty. And I don't know how well it's going to work with these other shades. I could see a couple potentials here, but it is just that really fun shade. The thing that I love about it, it is so luminous and just has that pop, but there's no shimmer to it. And you can really blend it out to where all you're seeing is that like violet, you know what I mean? Like, it's just so pretty. It just makes me so happy. So definitely one that I use quite a bit. All right. Now it's time to give you the close-ups, and then we will do our looks. All right, here we have our shades, starting with Fra-gee-lay from Pretties for Your Face, Adorn from Devinah Cosmetics. We have Bitten from Makeup Geek, Celesta from Devinah, Tucana from Devinah, Grandstand from Makeup Geek. Here we have General from Sydney Grace. Then we have Patinated from Glam Shop, Toes in the Sand from Sydney Grace, and Nokomis from Devinah. All right, now that you got to see my most used shades, I'd really love to know if you would pick any of these. Are any of these your most used shades? Are they sort of your ride or dies as well? I would really love to know that. So for the looks, I'm going to probably stay away from Tucana for this one just because everybody's seen it here on my channel so much. I think the theme for tonight is going to be layering shadows. I'm really excited to kind of like get into some of the fun of that. So that's how we're going to start. Now, that being said, I am going to go ahead and prime my eyes. I'm actually going to go through with the new Prelusion Eye Base from Devinah Cosmetics. I actually just used this for the first time yesterday, and I was really impressed with it. Like, my shadow just went on super smooth. It did take down some of the discoloration I had on my eyes, but it didn't make my shadow skip more. Like, it just was really nice. So for the sake of trying it again, I'm gonna go ahead and pop some of this on. And I'm just using a really thin layer. I feel like when I saw Deandra use it on her live, I feel like she used a bit more than me, which, you know, obviously that's just like personal preference, but I'm just using just enough to kind of get that nice base on the lid. And as usual, I am going to go through with a little bit of translucent setting powder just to kind of like set that down. At least like for me, it's the crease and up, because I want to make sure that everything goes on super, super smooth above my crease. So I just find that if there is going to be a tackiness to a primer, which this one doesn't seem to have at all, but if there is, setting it like that can really help. All right, we're going to go through with Bitten from Makeup Geek, and I'm actually going through with a fairly large fluffy brush because I'm going to lay this down over the entire lid and just sort of like blow it out and up into my crease. So maybe you can see already how much that sort of like burgundy shade really made the green in my eyes pop out. And I do feel like this shade is not quite as intense as it was originally. But like I said, I mean, I've had this shadow for a really long time. Like so long that, you know, if it wasn't just me using it on myself, I would maybe be a little concerned, but I've had zero problems with any of these. So, okay, I might go back through with a small dense brush just to really like pack it in where I want it to be even darker, but I'm gonna hold off on that for now. Now we're gonna layer a beautiful shimmer over the top, and I'm just trying to find, I've been doing so much filming and not enough brush cleaning, let me tell you. So I am gonna take Celesta now, and I'm taking the 209. Oh, I should grab some of my Devinah brushes. Maybe that's what I'll do for the other eye. And that way I can update you in the future about my thoughts on those brushes again. I did sort of give like a first impression in the video that went up about the new releases, but you know, sometimes brushes that you think you're going to love, you don't end up reaching for all the time. And sometimes the brushes that you really didn't connect with at first are the brushes that end up becoming like true, you know, need to have brushes. Now, because I just wet my brush and I didn't use a tacky primer, I'm trying to be very gentle as I move this around because I don't want to start like mixing Bitten in with Celesta. I do want that to just lay on top. So I'm just taking a thin amount on this BK Beauty brush and almost like pressing it in. And then when I go through with that small dense packing brush, then I can, you know, kind of blend out this edge. You know, I'm not all about that cut crease life, so we're just going to make it a little bit more blendy. I'm getting a little bit of fallout, but truly, like, I would never attempt to look like this without doing my eyes first. But I just wanted a little blush and something on, so it's okay. That's what concealer is for. All right, I'm going to take the Blend Bunny B1 brush, and I'm going to pack this in right above my crease. So, by the way, I was just talking about, you know, how our opinions can kind of change and develop over time. I have to say, so I have 2 full sets of the Blend Bunny brushes that I bought because I really liked them when I first got them and I wanted to get a new set. But can I just say, since I bought my brushes, I have had at least 3 or 4 brushes from those sets where the ferrule separates from the handle. And that, you know, obviously makes me kind of mad. And the reason that I find that that usually happens is people are washing their brushes and getting water up here, you know, like actual almost like submersion or like too much dampness, and it can loosen the glue. I don't do that. I mean, I know how to wash a brush properly, and it just makes me mad. Granted, it's probably not that hard to go through and, you know, drop a little glue in and re-adhere it, but I don't want to do that. I don't want to have to do that. I don't think I should have to do that. I'm just taking this brush and like stretching this shape out just a little bit more. You know what I've been finding as I get older and my eye shape, I mean, I don't want to say my eye shape has changed that much, but obviously gravity takes hold a little bit more. I am finding that I really have to be careful not to pull my shadow up too far right here, because obviously I already have slightly downturned eyes, and over time that's probably just gonna like be accentuated. So if I get too much of my transition color right here, even if I really kind of stretch this out a little bit, it still looks off. So I have to start doing a little bit less or a little lighter color and kind of pulling that up. So I just went through with a Q-tip with some micellar water, and obviously that's kind of like giving me a harder line. So I'm just gonna let it dry, and then I'll probably just like buff it out to smooth the edge. But before I do that, I'm gonna take that same brush and very delicately run this underneath my lash line. And I say delicately because I don't want to like blur the bristles out too much, because then I'm gonna look like I have pink eye. Like I don't want to drag this down too far down under my eye. Okay, that's just enough. And I sort of only went, what, 2/3 of the way in. So now to clean up, I'm gonna go ahead and pop some concealer on. That'll help with the fallout situation. And then, like I said, I'll just blur that edge that I just created with that Q-tip. I'm keeping it real with y'all though. You know, sometimes we're like, my face is not what it used to be. Thank you, 42. Okay, so now, since this is so like dark and kind of colorful, I'm just gonna take that Fra-gee-lay as my inner corner. Just something that's like soft and subtle. By the way, I did really like the shape now that I've cleaned up that inner corner. Just in the last few months, I've really been noticing that either I'm getting a little carried away when I'm using my brushes and blending out my mattes, or I'm just finding that that's something that I need to do as time goes on. I feel like that's definitely really nice and flattering for my eye shape. Now, if you have upturned eyes, I don't know why you'd ever not want them upturned, but if you did want to change that a little bit, you could bring up a darker crease color here and then, you know, kind of keep it more straight and not quite as elongated. All right, mascara, and then it's time to move on to the other side. All right, I really like this. I think it's very sort of like grungy Christmas, or like badass Grinch. I don't know, but this is like a reddish and a green that I can get down with. Like, I don't want true red and green together, but like a murky sort of burgundy and a green. You know, it's sort of like grungy green and a grungified red, if you will. So I actually really like this. You'll have to let me know what you think. So now we're gonna do another look on the other side. And I'm just realizing that what I could have done is on the lower lash line, I could have gone through with General. That was sort of a missed opportunity. That's okay. All right, so now for our second look, again, it's gonna be all about sort of layering. I'm gonna experiment. I'm actually going to try putting on Grandstand and then topping it with Patinated, more like a topper shade rather than, you know, a full lid shade. And then this way you'll get to see Grandstand, see why I loved her so much, but it'll just be fun for me to experiment. That being said, I'm just gonna sort of speed through this one. So please enjoy, and I'll see you with the final result.
Take me to the stars and the moon. My mind's out of balance. Heartbeats irregular. Kinda thought we'd break it through. Light speed, tears streaming down. I'm here, but already moving on. You care, then you kill it better. It's never gonna feel right. Maybe it's a matter of time. Maybe it's a matter of time. Maybe it's a matter of time. Funny are the times we've had. Always made me feel kinda blue. I know, you know. It all feels so good from a distance.
All right, this is a fun one. I wasn't sure about putting Nokomis on just because this is rather classic glam, but it just gives it that little something, you know? Which I think just shows the beauty of this shade and why I use it so much. I actually also really liked layering that Patinated shade over Grandstand. It just made it a little bit more, not textured in a bad way, but more shimmery sparkly and not just molten, although it is really beautiful on its own as well. Hopefully you were able to see that. And I will say, by the way, if you're looking for a shade that's similar-ish to this, I think Blushed from Sydney Grace is a pretty close one. That one I almost put in here. But I know that that one was actually in my All I Need palette as well. So this one I also have used more of because, you know, didn't have as many shadows at that point. Anyway, I really love this. I love both of these looks. This was a lot of fun. It also was a good exercise in play, you know, just getting to sit down, throw some things on, throw caution to the wind a little bit too, but, you know, really just like layer and see as a mixologist what I could come up with. So I hope that you enjoyed it. Okay, I feel like as I zoom out a little bit more, you can just, you know, sort of see these looks more. I have to say, I just really love a classic shape on the eye. Like for me, I just like it. I like a good stretched out, sort of winged out eyeshadow. Nothing too fancy, but just beautifully done. I mean, that sounds like I'm patting myself on the back, but you know, just like a beautiful classic shape on my eye. I love both these looks, so I hope that this was inspiring to you, and I hope that it encourages you to, you know, play with your shadows, layer them a little bit, just to see what you can come up with, because I certainly had fun tonight doing this. Okay, so as always, we always announce what next month's video will be at the end of the current video. So next month, if you have been watching this series for quite a while, you might know that every year we've been doing a reflections palette as our December tipping into January, and that is going to be what we do this year as well. So next month we'll be sharing shadows that sort of represent reflecting back on the year. I know I really enjoy getting to see other creators just sort of talk about their year and, you know, really see their year as a color story. So that being said, if I know other creators that have decided to jump in on this month's theme, I will also have their videos linked down below so that you can check those out. I am sure that we have, I think Luck Maiden is doing this one, and I'm hoping that a couple other people are as well. I am really excited to see what people's most used shadows are. I think this was a fun one. Hopefully you enjoyed it as well. And by the way, we are always open to ideas. So if there is a theme that you'd like to see us do in the new year, please go ahead and drop it down in the comments. And again, don't forget to check out Kara's video. I will have hers, of course, linked down below with any other creators that I know have done this video. Thank you so much, lovelies, and I will see you really soon.